everybody. Welcome to Getting to After. Well, my name is Morgan Bustos, and this is my colleague, Chatone Morrison. Welcome,
Hi,
Chatone.
everybody. Welcome, Morgan. Hey, thank you all for being back with us for our Getting to After. This is our podcast that's really all about helping women who are in midlife to tap their way into transformation. And this is a special series that we're doing. Before I get started, I want to go ahead and, of course, give our little disclaimer because we are going to be talking about sensitive topics today. And if you're in a situation of DV, then I want to make sure that you know you may want to mute your phone or put your headphones on. If you have little ones that you don't want to hear this information, we'll give you a little time to do that. If you can't listen to this now, then please do bookmark it so that you can come back later. Today, we're going to be going through some questions that you've probably asked yourself or questions that other people have asked you that have made you feel, that defensive kind of way. And Morgan's actually being game with me to kind of talk through these things with you. Yes, I am Chatone Morrison. I am known as the Princess of Positivity, and that's because I believe that you can release negativity so your positive can reign in your brain, your business, your big, beautiful life. As we use core energy coaching and emotional freedom technique to help women tap their way into transformation, no matter what it is that they have going on, we help them to release the negative energy around either health issues, emotional issues, or even past traumas. This particular series is called Overcoming Silence, Resilience and Rediscovery After Domestic Violence. And the entire point of us doing this is because Morgan, who again is my co-host, was a survivor or is a survivor of domestic violence for almost 17 years. And so a lot of our friendship, a lot of our getting to know each other surrounded her experience inside of domestic violence. But it wasn't until now that she felt safe enough to be able to tell her story. We've been wanting to do this for a really long time, like a long time. But
Mhm.
sometimes you have to wait until the timing is right, and the timing's right now. Super proud of her for being able to step forward, not just for herself, of course. There is like this release, this cathartic release when you do something like this,
Yeah.
but really for the other people, right, Morgan?
Mhm. That's the whole reason why we're doing this is to see how many people we can help because knowledge is power. And so by giving them just a little bit of extra information, it really can mean saving their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, today we're going to jump into some of those things. If you yourself are a victim, even right now, or you have been in the past and you're kind of living with the guilt and shame of what it looks like, which typically, unfortunately, there is quite a bit of guilt and shame. There's shame around the fact that it happened to you, or we know that a lot of time family groups do they lack compassion and they have a lot of blame, and based on our research and our education into domestic violence, a lot of that is because of fear. Fear that I don't want it to happen to me. It's almost like it's contagious. Have you ever experienced
Mhm.
where someone, when you start talking about it, it's like you almost
Oh, they
physically feel them? Talk to me
You feel
about that.
them. Yeah, you definitely like if I'd start talking about something even a little deep or people they literally you can feel them retracting back, like, oh, I don't want to hear about this because then I might have to do something or say something or act like I care, and I don't have that to give of myself kind of thing. And then sometimes honestly people just don't know what to say. And
Mhm.
so then that keeps them from wanting to jump into the conversation or even continue it.
Yeah. So when that's happened to you, let's just jump in. I mean, what are the feelings around that when that happens? Especially if you have, I know that you've been very reluctant to talk even with me, and we're super close,
Mhm.
until recently. So when that's happening and you do like give a little, like almost like test the water, like when you get in the pool and you put your toe in, you're like, let me see what happens. And the person retracts. What does that do?
Honestly, it almost re-victimizes you, um, because it's hard enough to talk about it, first of all. But then when you do start talking about it and a person pulls away, then you're questioning yourself again. Like, "Oh, did I do something wrong? Is maybe this isn't that big of a deal," or just really, really doubting yourself even more so. So it's kinda like it's just like a domino effect, of the chaos that starts at home, and then when you try to bring it into the real world, it still kinda continues.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and looking at, talking to other people and looking at one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of go through this is because obviously it's going to help you to talk through some things. And, you know, our listeners, people that are watching, we are not rehearsed. You know, this is not. There may be some minor edits, okay, but we're real time with this because this is not a this is not a pre-planned thing. So
Mm,
we want to do everything that we're doing in this project. We want to bring the same kind of flavor throughout the project. We're doing
mm,
this a little messy. We're doing things like we're on the fly because that's what happens. And
mhm,
sometimes when you need to make those hard decisions, staying, leaving, telling, going to a shelter, things, you're doing that on the fly. And so we really want to represent everything ain't pretty. Some things
mm.
are messy, many things are messy, and you do them anyway if you think they're going to be life saving. So, Morgan, let me ask you a question. Again, why don't you tell us how long it was that you were a victim of domestic violence?
So that's a good question. So, like, when we got away or, like, the residual also? Because I count
Well,
the residual
the
also.
residual is still happening. So, so tell your story, babe.
Okay. So married for 15 years, and then the residual literally is still happening as of, like, last night, having to deal with nonsense. So, it's, I don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah,
It's something that is life lasting, but at the same time, it's something that we can work through and navigate through,
yes.
you
Yeah.
know?
So I know you said, go ahead.
Just real quick. Okay, so I really, really need to explain. I am just naturally a happy person, so I always have a smile on my face. But also, laughter and humor is how I've gotten through all of this. So even though this is a super, super sensitive subject, I want everybody to understand and hear my heart very clearly that I'm not making light of this. Like, this is one of my coping mechanisms, and this is just who I am as a person. So I don't ever want you to think that I'm being disrespectful to you or to the subject in any kind of way. So I just had to put
Yeah.
that out real quick.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, Morgan, I know we did that little taste. I haven't even put that video up yet. It's coming because we've been getting that question. We've been getting that question. And so we went behind the scenes a little bit and we did a little after show video. I will
Yeah.
release that so that people understand however you get through something, the thing is coming out alive on the other side, not just physically, but emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, financially. I mean, there's many, many aspects. So when you mention that, how long it's been. So I always say 17 because obviously time is still going on, but your abuser is now deceased. So it's been almost 3 years since he was deceased, but obviously you left for some period of time. So when you talk to people, let's just jump ahead. I know that you've been working very closely with some shelters there in North Carolina, which is so beautiful, y'all. She is just such a beautiful person inside and out. And so even from the very beginning, when she was leaving, when she was, getting her children safe, she was immediately doing work in shelters. So
Mhm.
we're going to talk a little bit later in episode 5 about what we're doing in terms of that way. But um, when you have, well, let me do it this way. Why don't you talk to us about how shelters were a part of your exit throughout your marriage?
Okay. So we left multiple times. And that's one thing I want people to understand is it may not happen the first time because they're really good at manipulating us and getting us to feel guilty for leaving, right? Even though we know we're doing the right thing and we're doing it to save our lives. So the first time we left and we went to a shelter, and then the second time we left and went to a shelter, and then we had to go to in our local area, right? So there was twice in our local area where we were staying at that time. And then when we were fleeing the very last time, um, it was about an hour away. We were staying at that shelter too. The reason why shelters mean so much to me is because it was a moment in time where you're the most vulnerable,
Mhm.
like when we walked away, I mean, like, I didn't even have my shoes on. It's that kind of thing. So we walked away with literally nothing, like, except our
Yeah.
lives. Um, so for them to be as loving and kind to us and to be able to provide my children with number 1, a place to bathe themselves, to put their heads down, and to give us clothes, like, that means so much to me. So they didn't go to sleep hungry, which is a huge thing for me. Um, the women that work at these shelters, they're a whole 'nother kind of people.
Mm,
You know, the social service department and human resources and the shelters, I have a deep love and respect for them because they see this every single day. Like, they deal with this 24 hours a day. We're
it's a
dealing with
lot.
it, yeah, we're
It's a lot.
dealing with this 24 hours a day too, but it's on a different level because
Well, it's one for us, and it's many
right?
for them. Yeah,
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 yeah, so being able to disconnect from them, um, that's why I'm really, really happy to be able to teach them these techniques with the EFT because then it helps them to be able to work with these women differently too,
yeah,
so that they can decompress and disconnect a little bit.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so when people, obviously shelters, people have different feelings about shelters. They have different feelings. Everybody thinks everybody's homeless. And can you talk about this idea of homelessness versus escape?
Hmm, yeah, so you can escape and still have somewhere to go. You can escape, you can have a place, you can have a vehicle to live in, you can have friends' couches to crash on, you can have, like, different areas you can be in. Homelessness literally is like not even is what we went through where we didn't have a vehicle, we didn't have finances, we didn't have a place to lay our heads. We didn't have any of that because we had to get rid of our vehicle that we had because it had an OnStar on it, right? So even though we immediately when we left, within it was within, like, the first 2 weeks, if it wasn't even that long, it was, like, within the first week, we ended up ditching that car, and then if it wasn't for, some really good friend of ours from the children's school letting us use their minivan, we wouldn't have had anywhere to be, period. So, like, we were living in the minivan, we were sleeping in the minivan, we were driving, around and everything in the van and, like, washing up in the gas stations, that kinda thing, so there's a little bit of a difference when you have somewhere to lay your head in a warm home, and then when you don't even have that.
Yeah, yeah. I think we should release that real quick. What do you think?
Let's do it.
Yeah, we're gonna release that for just 1 second, because I know. Yeah, drink some water, honey. Little hydration. Listen, y'all. When we talk about these deep things, that was deep for me because I forgot. You can
Mhm.
forget these things. So even though you have experienced homelessness,
Even though I have experienced homelessness,
I deeply and completely love and respect myself.
I deeply, completely love and respect myself.
Even though my children had to live in a van at one point,
Even though my children had to live in a van at one point,
I now have peace and I accept it.
I now have peace and I accept it.
Even though I had to escape,
Even though I had to escape,
I am so happy for my survival.
I am so happy for my survival.
Right, we're not gonna go through the whole thing. Y'all, that's the beginning of EFT. Do you understand how the release happens? So this point right here on your body, I didn't even mean to do this today. This was look,
Man,
this is like, whoa, I think we need to do that real quick. This is
I'm gonna
literally
like
what emotional freedom technique is all about. You're in the midst of something, you're in the
Mhm,
middle of it. What would a woman normally do? You feel a
mhm,
hit of something, you don't know what to do about it, you go get a coffee. You gotta do a Starbucks run.
mhm,
You're running to a vending machine, you're
mhm,
eating something, or or suddenly you're shopping or something, right? This will literally help you to disconnect from a moment. Tears are not bad.
mhm.
Tears are a release. They are a
Yes,
gift
right.
in our physiology. And then after you would do that, that's called a setup phrase. And after you
Uh-huh.
do that, then you would actually go through this entire. We will show you how it works. So stick around getting to after because look, domestic violence is not something you get over, but there
Mhm.
is an after. And
Yeah.
so we're looking for whatever, whether it's DV or whether it's health. We're going to be
Mm.
talking a lot. I'm going through a lot of health things right now. We're going to be talking
Yeah.
about some of that. So make sure that you tune in because this is very powerful work that we're doing. It's incredible. Go ahead.
What I appreciate about this too is it's so real, it's not even funny, but I like how you said in that moment when we're overwhelmed, we're just overwhelmed. We're shaking in our bodies. We don't know what to do. And literally just using that pressure point and addressing the feeling and
The
emotion,
real
that
thing, the real.
raw feeling and emotion. It's not about the affirmation part of it. It's about acknowledging what you're going through right here, right now, because that's what helps you instantly come out of that panic state. right?
That's right.
It will help come from, like, a 10 to, like, maybe even if it's an 8 or a 10 to a
Yeah.
7, you know, kinda thing.
Something.
Something is
Something.
a huge help.
And I think the reason it's amazing because I just, you we were we're EFT practitioners. We do things, a lot of things on intuition, and my intuition was like, "Oh, we need to release that because
Yeah.
that's heavy, right?"
Mhm.
Um, what I think is that what you said that I really loved is that we're not just working with our clients, but like in a shelter. That's not all the work we do. We do lots of things, but this
Mhm.
idea of working with um, the staff because
Yeah.
energy is very you can absorb it, and then this keeps these women able and men too able to do this work continuously because just how teachers burn out and HR professionals burn out and nurses burn out.
Mhm.
Doctors don't burn out as much because they're in there for a shorter period of time, but surgeons burn out, right? Because
Mm.
they're in an 18-hour so when you're in a domestic violence situation, you can literally burn out, and that's one of the reasons why you stay because you're like,
Mm.
I just don't have
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
more. I have nothing. I don't have the strength. I see my child there. I see what's happening. And I know that even though you weren't using EFT yet, you were using some other wellness modalities. And that's what kept you on the ball to want to protect your very young daughter from seeing any of it till she
Mhm.
never even knew it was existing. Right.
Mhm.
And then you got her out of there before she became a victim. Um, some of the things that happen to women are that the people the either you have we're not going to address naysayers because people who think it's not happening you need to really release them.
Mhm.
So if you're in a situation and you hear my voice and your mom doesn't believe you, your dad doesn't believe you, your best friend's like, oh come on, he's such a nice guy. These are not safe people. These are
Mhm.
not safe people. But there are some people that based on their own fear, they're really struggling, right? To understand. And one of the questions that they may ask you is just like, I mean, why don't you just leave?
So, that is one of the most difficult questions to answer because everybody has their own reason. Number 1, you typically love the person, you know, there's a part of you that sees some
Yeah.
good in them that you fell in love with in the beginning, and throughout the abuse, you keep going back to that one piece of it, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And thinking it's like, "Oh, I can help them get to that whole, being all that all the time," kinda thing. So to answer your question, some people it's because they love them. Some people it's because of finances. You know,
Mhm.
that was a huge thing for me. We spoke about that previously. Is like, how am I going to raise my 4 children on my own? And I have extreme health problems. You know what I mean? Some people it's because they don't have anywhere to go. They don't have that family and the support group that they need. So they're like, well, if I leave here, and
And what?
I okay, maybe I have a car. So then they're like, am I going to be living in my car? I'm not doing that to my kids. Or they're going to be, or they don't have a vehicle, so
Mhm.
then they're saying, "Well, where am I gonna go? How am I even gonna get away and start over when I have absolutely nothing?" But that's where I want you to hear me when I say, like, it's possible. It's possible. It's getting to the point where you're able to acknowledge and to be able to start putting all those pieces together, right? So that that can happen. And it is important to have a good support group when you're doing that. If it
Yeah.
wasn't for my support group, between you and so I'll refer to them always as Amma and Papa. Like they're the grandparents that went to my kids' school. Like if it was not for them helping me nonstop with helping because I'd always be late everywhere because remember I was telling you how I had to drive, 2 hours this way and 2 hours that way. If it wasn't for them, like, helping picking up the kids, and then me going and picking them up from them or helping me with the vehicle or helping me just to listen, like,
Mhm.
I wouldn't have been able to get through this on my own, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? So, some people can even say, "Well, I don't even have that." I believe you. I believe that there may be people where they don't have like you were just saying, you have a lot of naysayers in your area and they're like, "Well, just walk away." And then they'll disconnect from you because they're like, "I'm not gonna keep helping you or even listening to you," because they get tired of it, because they're like, well, stop talking about it and do something about it."
That's
I
very
think
easy to say.
yeah, but getting there, it takes a minute, and it gets it's a point where you really have to start, looking internally and, working on yourself. So to start building up your own self-esteem because it's so torn down. Like, even to this day, I am extremely insecure about, like, everything. everything, like, even being on camera, you know how long it's taken me to even be able to be on camera, you
Y'all
know what
don't
I mean?
even know. Y'all hear my voice? Y'all
Yeah.
don't even know the fight that I had. That's why sometimes we giggle and laugh in the midst of some of the most horrible things that we because even so, you can I can see where you're from. I can see
Mm,
where you were.
mhm.
And I have to say this that I know that last year, y'all don't, we'll tell our story some other time, but, it took us 7 years to meet each other. Everything was virtual.
Mm,
Everything was virtual. Like I didn't get to put my head on her neck for 7 years. That's crazy.
yep,
That's crazy. So we went to a workshop, a big seminar with our other silent partner, my sister, last August when we finally got to meet and caused the hugest, hugest scene in a hotel lobby you've ever seen.
ever seen.
I mean, it was truly a Hollywood,
Oh,
Sandra Bullock type movie, Julia Roberts moment there.
yeah,
Um, Crazy. But what was interesting is that we were at this
mm,
seminar, and there was a like a kiosk talking about domestic violence, and um, Morgan went and stood underneath, and I took a picture of her, and I'm going to insert the picture here because I think you guys should see it.
yeah, yeah,
That picture is so interesting. People who have been through domestic violence know other people who have been through domestic violence. So
mhm,
as she took, we weren't talking. It was very quiet. It was after the workshop was over, so she was standing by herself there. In that picture, I took the picture of her, and one woman walked up, and she just walked over to Morgan and just grabbed her hand, and then she hugged her, and they were both of them just crying, no words.
mm,
See, that's one of the reasons why this is so important to both of us, because as an outsider, I really couldn't get people to understand. All I heard were questions like, "Why won't she just leave?"
mm,
And it's so I didn't know the answer, but I
mhm,
knew the answer wasn't because Morgan is XYZ something negative. I
mhm.
knew it wasn't that, and I didn't want to explain that. So I think, there's fear, there's financials, there's all those things you mentioned, but also those questions. If your question isn't helpful, don't ask the question.
Mhm.
Why
Well,
don't you just leave? I'm not really sure it's for the victim. I think it's for the person who's asking so that they can. I really firmly believe that women try a lot of times to not see themselves in the situation you're in. And
mm,
it's very easy to say, I know what
yeah,
I would do. I know what I
right.
would do. And I don't think we know.
You know, I honestly think that one of the best things you can say in a moment like that is, "Are you safe? And how can I help?"
Yeah.
Even if the answer is, "I don't know," that woman knows subconsciously that she can come to you if she needs if she when she gets to that point when she does need help, you know? So
Yeah.
that right there is the
That's
best thing.
important.
Mhm.
That's important. I'll put that in the description below in case someone just happens to see that. That's information. I do want to really take an interjection real quick and let you know that we have just released our first ever magazine called Getting to After. It's a magazine for midlife women. It is an e-zine, and you can get it for free. We put out this first edition, launch edition, the month of October 2024, of course, in honor of National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And so it is all featuring things about domestic violence, tricks, tips, things you can do even while you're in the midst, and some of Morgan's stories. So I want to make sure that you know how to get to it. All of that will be in the description box and on YouTube, and will be in the notes for our podcast today. So, Morgan, what about do you believe that um, during the course of your relationship, so let's take me back to like the first time that you got hit, because one of the things that people will say is, I know if he hit me once. Like, it's so easy to say that. What was going through your mind the first time you were physically abused or attacked?
Absolutely. I remember I was sitting in my office, and then the situation that provoked it, when he came up, he, like, came, like, forcefully walking towards me and just punched me square in the arm, right? And when that happened, my response was just this. I was like, Like,
That was
what
the
the
first
heck?
time.
That was the first time. That was the first time that he put hands on me. And I was looking at him and I was like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "What are you doing?" And so then I grabbed my youngest son and I was just like holding him because I didn't know what was gonna happen next, right? So like I picked up the baby and I put it his way. My husband was over there and I was just like this, and he's like, he was just yelling and screaming at me. I mean, like ferociously angry, yelling at me, all because I disciplined the baby. And I'm like, dude,
Mm.
he's 2. He needs to know boundaries. It's not like I beat him. It's not like you know what I mean? It's like I slapped his hand because he was gonna get hurt. But because I put hands on him, he put hands on me. And so he made it very clear from that moment on, I was not allowed to discipline my son. And so
Mm.
that caused such a huge rift in the relationships of the whole family. So let me explain what I mean by that. So because I wasn't able to discipline my youngest son, there was such animosity from the other 3 because he was getting away with murder, murder.
Got it.
And
Got
then
it.
it caused animosity between me and my son, or my son and I. I don't know which way it is, but because I'm like, Dude, I'm your mom. Like, I have every right, like
Right.
the God-given right to make sure that I'm not hurting you, but I have to give
Teaching.
you direction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want you to be a good, competent individual when you grow up that's going to be an addition to the community, not take from it. And so I
Right.
have to teach you. I have to give you boundaries and guidelines.
And
So
you mentioned that your husband was gone so many hours. Of course, he wasn't present to do that.
Right?
Mm.
So and then when he would be present, like, I wouldn't want him to discipline the children because he would go the other direction with it, right? So it was more like, um, it was a double-edged sword, like, I wanted help with it, but then at the same time, he would go so left field with it and overboard that it
It's too
wasn't.
much.
Yeah,
It's too much.
yeah.
Yeah. So, in what way did you stand up for yourself? Or did
So
you?
yeah, no, that was the first time that I left. So the youngest baby she was still crawling, so, like,
Wow.
under a year. And
Wow.
then my youngest son was about 2. Um, yeah, so that was the first time, and I left and we went to another city, like, I packed up their little bags like, when he left for work, I left and because I
Mm.
could never leave when he was there, right?
No,
Like, he would
no.
never let me in. Like, to the extent, dude, he would back his truck in to block me. He would always have me park in the garage. He said it was so I was safe getting the kids out of the car. Yeah, I definitely believe that's part of it. But the real reason is he would come and he would back his truck in right behind me so that I couldn't get out. So if there was like a
Incident, yeah.
thank you, sorry, just needed to calm down.
Yeah.
If there was an incident that was happening, like, I wouldn't be able to leave.
Right.
So the only way would be to walk. And when you have 4 itty bitties,
You
like,
can't.
you
Yeah.
can, it's just really difficult, you know?
Yeah.
Did I even answer your question?
Honey, you
I don't
never have
know.
to worry about answering my question. This is not a test. Okay, this is the real thing. All right. So you left. We're going to talk more
Mhm.
about that in our next episode. When
Yeah.
he obviously you came back, when
Mhm.
he hit you the next time after you came back, I'll ask the question, what not why won't you leave, but what made you stay?
Pure fear. Pure terror and fear, because that was the time that he busted up my face really, really good. We were out of town. We were on our family vacation because my family always would go to a place up in Colorado called Breckenridge, Dillon area,
Hmm. Hmm.
and so we would always go over Thanksgiving break. And
And it was beautiful. I remember seeing pictures. So
that's
even for me, I hate to cut you
yeah.
off, but even for me being on the outside, I'm like, I'm so confused. Like these
Mhm.
gorgeous, fancy, fabulous vacations. And I'm thinking, because of not having the experience, like,
Mhm.
why doesn't she take some of this money and go? Or like, I
Mhm.
just didn't know. And at the same time, I also, but at the time in the beginning, I didn't know what was going on yet. So
Yeah.
later on, you as a friend, as a person that's supporting you, trying to piece things together. And I really just want to underline the fact that you probably can't piece it together because the person's trying to keep themselves and their family safe. But go ahead.
Um, well, and also trying to keep you safe too,
Yeah.
because if you have too much knowledge, then that's dangerous for you and your family. So
Right.
it was a matter of trying to keep everybody like that was in our little world as safe as possible. So it's me trying to protect everybody else, right?
Mhm.
So we were up at our condo And at that point, like, it finally spilled out, like, that he had been cheating on me. It wasn't the first time, it wasn't the second time, but it was the one that was the most monumental, right? Um, and it was crazy because the when I had addressed it first, he looked me dead in my eyes because I won't even forget, like, the first time I brought the situation up was at home, right? Right before we left. And he steps up to me because I got up to make him his breakfast, and I was like, "So who is this person?" Right? He's like, "What are you talking about?" "It's the project manager at my job." And I'm like, Why are you communicating with her like this?" Right? I said, "So basically I was just asking him, are like, so how long have you been seeing her? Are you cheating on me? Why are you cheating on me?" kind of thing. And he looks me dead in my eyes and he goes, "What is wrong with you?" He's like, "Who do you think I am? I'm married. I am a husband. I have a wife. I have 4 kids." He's like, "When do you think I'm gonna have time to do this?" I mean, he was getting so aggressive, like yelling and screaming at me. He's like, "You're so stupid," like cussing me out left and right. He's like, "I go to work. I leave here. Look at what time it is right now. You're actually making me late for work. Now I'm gonna have to speed to work. And if I get a ticket."
Gaslighting,
Yeah,
gaslighting
right?
to the wow.
Right? Oh my goodness. So then he's like yelling and screaming at me about that. He's like, "You're gonna be making me late for work and da 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 da." And I'm like, "I have your phone right here. Your messages, your emails, your text messages, your phone call, your like." And I'm not the kind of woman that like I don't snoop. Like, you do your thing. Like, if you're gonna cheat, you're gonna cheat, whatever. But it was right there. It was right there. He wasn't even trying to hide it, but he was getting angry at me because he's like, "I work all day. When am I gonna have time to cheat on you? You work
Okay.
in another city. You work in another city. You're the boss. You can do whatever you want, but the action is right here." So then speeding forward to being at the vacation, so my elderly mother was with us, right? So it was my mom and the 3 youngest ones. My oldest daughter wasn't there that time. And it was crazy because, like, these incidents would always happen right before my daughter left or right after. She was never
Mhm.
present in them because then she could go back and tell, like, her dad about
So
it,
he
right?
knew that. He knew
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so he knew how to manipulate it and when to do these things. Um, so my mom was there, she's in a wheelchair, right?
Mhm.
So I just remember I can't speak on everything that happened that moment because that's a little too much, right this second, but when I tell you, once again, like, running out of a building with no shoes on. I remember, like, right after he punched me, like, I'm getting thrown all over the place, right? Not even joking, like, launched across the room, choked out with his legs, the whole stinking thing. I bit his leg so I could run and get away. I ran out to my mom. I grabbed her phone. I took a picture of my face. I threw the phone at her, and I went running out the hallway. Then at that point, the person at the end of the hallway that was on the elevator was right there, and then there was a person right there, and she looked at me, she grabbed me and pulled me into there was the door right there. So they're talking, long story short, what ended up happening is they were like, "What happened? Do you need help?" Come to find out, she had been a victim of domestic violence herself, so she
Wow.
knew what she was seeing. She saw my face, she saw no shoes, she saw I just had my phone and my keys. So she pulls me in there. Long story short, they're trying to help me. I'm panicking because I need to get away. So I get down, and please forgive me because it's still, like, mushy. All I can say is by the time I got downstairs, the police were there. They had, asked me what was going on because the lady had called or somebody in that had called for help. They were there immediately, like, immediately.
Wow.
So, I'll never forget his name. His name was Officer Rice. Like, so I'm sitting there, and I'm sitting on the little bench on the inside. And the lady's sitting next to me, and he's looking at my face, and he's like, "Ma'am," he's like, "Can you tell me what happened?" And I'm like, "I can't." And he's like, "Well, can you tell me what's happened to your face?" And I said, "I can't." Oh, no, I said, "I can't." I said, "I don't have an answer for you." I kept saying, "I don't have an answer for you." Um, and so he's like, "Ma'am," he's like, "just in the couple of minutes that you've been sitting here," he's like, "your face is completely your
Oh,
eyes completely swollen up,"
Morgan.
right? And so, he's like, "We're gonna need to get you some medical attention." He goes, "Can you tell me where like, how this happened?" And I was like, "I can't, I don't have an answer for you." So because the person it wasn't hard for them to figure it out because the lady next to me was like, "We're staying right here, da, da, da." So they figured it out. The other police officers went up there, Miss Officer Rice stayed by me and, was talking to me. The whole reason why I didn't say anything is because my mom was still up there and so were my kids. So I know my husband well enough to know that he's going to punish my son for anything that I do. He's and my mom can't defend herself, not saying
And
that
how old was your oldest son at that time?
he was under the age of 8.
Yeah, that's a baby.
Yeah. Yeah, he was under the age of 8. And so, not knowing what this man was going to do to my family, like, I had to keep my mouth shut. So, this is what gets me. In a domestic violence situation, at least in the state of Colorado where we were, um, if the police are called, somebody has to go to jail. So, because of the fact that this man can lie better than I can tell the truth, he's flipped it around, said that I was drinking, I was drunk, I was an alcoholic, and that I attacked him while he was sleeping, right? And he couldn't get me off of him. He said that I was psychotic, that that I attacked him because keep in mind, I bit his leg when he was choking me with his thighs. So there was that. There was scratches on him, right, from me trying to like deflect, but I had like bruises all over my forearms trying to like shield and deflect. Um and so I think I scratched his face. I don't recall exactly where, but so he was telling them that I was attacking him. I said, I didn't attack him. I said, I was defending myself. And so then there was that part, right? I said that because I wouldn't say that he hit me. Wait, let me back up. Let me back up. I don't even think I said, I think that was what was going on in my head is that it was self defense because I didn't even say anything because that's why I ended up going to jail. So I went to jail. They took me to jail, but before they took me to jail, they had to take me to the hospital. When I was at the hospital, they had to Tessa come in. So Tessa is a agency that helps like battered
Yeah,
women. So the lady, she was so kind. Like I couldn't see, so like she's like reading to me because they have to do like a
because your face was swollen,
dude. I couldn't see out of like this whole eye is gone,
and
right?
yet they can arrest you. I don't even wanna get into the criminal justice system, so we're gonna keep that to one
Yeah.
side.
So it was, so she's sitting there and she's like, Mrs. Bustos, she goes, I have to ask you these questions. And it's basically what it is it's a paper that gauges like how much of a threat is this person
Mhm.
kind of thing, right? So she's asking me the questions and she's writing it all out and da 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 da. And I still have the paperwork to this day because it's kind of
Wow,
like one of those things where it's like if I doubt myself, I'm like, okay, no, just look
you
at
have to
this.
look.
Yeah, it's reality, right? Because sometimes there's those days, you know what I mean? Um, so she was saying she when she was done with it, she looked at it and she was like, "Da, da, 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 da." She's adding everything up, flips over the paper, adds it up, and she goes and, like, her neck was shaking. Like, her neck was shaking. She goes, "Mrs. Bustos," she says, "This scale only goes up to 18, and he scored a 23." She said, "Why are you still here?" And I said, "I don't have a choice at this moment." I said, "I can't get out quite yet." I said, "I'm working on it, but I can't get out quite yet." I said, "I have to get some other things in place so my babies are safe," right? And so, anyway, so I ended up this is in being in jail, it was a Friday. I was in jail over the weekend, and, on Monday when he came to the when we went to the judge, it was crazy because he got this is how good he is. He wrote a letter to the judge saying, "Please excuse my wife.
Mm,
Please excuse her. This is out of her character. She is the best wife in the whole world. She's an amazing mother. She's loyal. She's devoted. She's a very spiritual woman. She's in the ministry all the time. Like, please, like, please, like, don't sentence her to anything and make this a light sentence because she's such a phenomenal woman." He got my kids dressed in for like their little suits and dresses. He got my mom. He brought my mom in the wheelchair and like brought her into the thing to be like, "Woe is me," kind of thing. Like, please, like, amazing husband like just pleading for his psychotic wife, please don't punish her kind of thing. And I remember I was sitting there, the judge is right there, and I see them and I see the youngest two children, and I was angry. I was so angry because I'm like, shame on you for letting them see this. Shame on you for bringing them in here. Shame on you for bringing my mommy, for her to have to see this. This is between you and me. There's no reason for that. But that's another way that he would manipulate things, right? So then for him to do that, that made me like so angry. Like I was so ashamed of him. I was so I just couldn't believe he would do that. But so then what ended up happening is they released me immediately.
Were you
They said
exonerated?
so I had to come back for the court date f like X amount of weeks later, right? But they had released me. And so then when that happened, they released me immediately. They had to separate us. So since I he had brought my family there, the police officer said, "Mrs. Bustos, you can take the family vehicle, you leave, and then we'll drive him back to the condominium." So at that point, I put everybody in the car, put my mom and the babies in the car, took off, went back to the condo, got all our stuff, loaded it up, and then like dipped, right? And then from that point on, I wanna say that that is when we went to the shelter the first time. That was yeah. Yeah, because I couldn't see. Um, that was when we went to the shelter the first time. Because the first time we went to my mom's, the second time was to the shelter, and it was terrifying because I in this not the building or the place, it was terrifying because I was so scared he was going to find us. And the thing is the town that we lived in at the time was super tiny and everybody knew where the DV shelter was, right? So then the only thing that had helped is that I would park the car like really, really far away
Mhm.
and then I'd walk, but that put us in danger, right?
Absolutely.
But it was just one of those things I would have to do to make sure we were okay. Is that the time? Right after that, he ended up having health problems. And so he had some pretty dramatic health problems and he had to have surgery. That's a whole nother story. Um, And then because of what happened when I was at the hospital with him, I ended up going back because he couldn't take care of himself, right? So we ended up going back. Um,
So let me ask you. I mean, this is a lot that you've shared. I know this is emotionally draining. Um, One of the messages, and you being open about and raw about this, is the fact that this is what's going on. This started with this question of why did you leave, or why don't you just leave, or someone almost putting a judgment to it. And I appreciate you sharing this because I'm sure your story is not unique, and I mean it's unique, but it's not unique in the terms of domestic violence where people are where women especially are having situations like this where they have to choose between the safety of their parents or their safety, especially if they're caregivers, which I know you were a very strong caregiver, or the safety of their young children. And
mhm,
I just want to mention here, we are really raw, like we're really unedited and very messy, I told you, but there will be times where you'll see a cut in this video because by mistake, Morgan will mention one of her children's names. And we've agreed that even though they know that we're doing the podcast, we don't want their names all over the place. Now, let's face it, it's not hard to figure out any of our names, right? Because of
right.
social media. But it's important that we try our best. And so, even us, even now, even getting to after, even on the other side and working through things and working with shelters and so forth, the truth of the matter is there's always going to be a part of you that wants to protect someone. It could be a
Mhm,
child, it could be a parent, and sometimes, unfortunately, it is the abuser.
mhm.
Um,
Well, remember, like for so long, you didn't even know the children's names, their real names,
yeah,
because I only called them by their nicknames so that you could never find us if you wanted to help protect us and like try to is- not start something, but like just for
yeah,
you know what I mean? Like up until I don't even remember. It was years.
it was years. It was years.
Yeah.
Well, look, Morgan, I know that in episode 4 we're going to get even a little deeper than this.
Mhm,
Um, and then we're going to show some of the, talk about some of the tips that listen, y'all, there are these amazing organizations in your city or in your state that you can use. Um, we really implore you to look at those resources the best that you can. Part of our project with Getting to After is sponsoring women with small things, like small little
mhm,
things that we know might be seen as frivolous, but those are like these boxes that actually have self care items. So
mm,
they're called Empowerment Essential Self Care Kits because, as Morgan mentioned today, some of it was just going to a shelter, getting a shower, or having a warm bed.
yes.
But shelters really are, they're at the bare bones because they're trying to help
Mhm,
so many people. And so one of the things that we do when we get sponsorship is sponsor a woman. And that is literally giving her a beautiful gift box. It's not
Mhm.
super fancy, but it's something where she'll have like maybe her skincare, she'll have body
Body
cream,
wash.
body wash, things that,
Yeah.
little things that that's not, look, it's not the thing of all things you want to make sure you have your charger, your phone,
Mhm.
your technology because you need those things, your cards, some money, Morgan's going to go into an episode 5, go into like a checklist and we're going to physically talk about each of those items. Even if you've never gone to a shelter, even if you're it's just in the back of your mind, like, how do I get safe? It is not a bad idea. Any one of our women that we're going to be talking about
Yeah.
go bags in the future, having something so that you can leave quickly,
Yeah.
even if you try to work out the relationship, which we're not ever going to put judgment to that because we don't feel that that it's our call to put judgment to what your decision is. However, staying alive it's everything. It's
Yeah.
everything.
And so with that being said, we do have like the literally itemized go bag list, like the checklist. And when I tell you this is not a normal go bag, it's really,
Yeah.
really not.
Uh-uh.
Because I've had women be like, well, why would I need that? Like, why do I need to pay for that kind of thing? Like that information. I said, well, first of all, like part of what it does is it goes towards the donation, it goes towards the gift boxes, the self-care kits, right? But the reason why is because this particular go bag well checklist is going off of you never returning to your house again, you never returning to your city again, and you never returning to your state again. Like if you have to completely disappear, the kind of items and the things that you need to have with you. And the only reason why I'm saying this is because we went through so much nonsense because we didn't have the appropriate documentation. Like he almost got caught us so many times because it took 5 more minutes at the courthouse to figure this out, what we needed. So everything that we have is not just a go bag list, but we also have other lists of things that to do, like, you know, within the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours of things that you need to like check off and make sure that you're doing so that it gives you that extra,
Yeah,
couple of
that
minutes.
extra safety time.
Mhm.
Well, Morgan, thank you. I had more questions for you. We'll save them. I appreciate your honesty today and openness. Everyone, this is not easy. When we talk about overcoming silence, resilience, and rediscovery, even though Morgan, as we mentioned, has celebrated 5 years of not being physically abused, um, would you still say you cry almost every day? A little
I
bit?
just did again today, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah. And so that doesn't make her weak. She still makes her a warrior because we need to be able to absorb, well, we have absorbed a lot of negative things, whether it's domestic violence or something else. Our bodies have to release, and we need to see that as strength. We need to see that as strength. So I want to give you a link to our first initial magazine. It's bit.ly/G, and it's all in capitals, G2A MAG dash launch. That's bit.ly/G2, the number 2A, MAG, MAG dash launch. It will be in the description box below. There's some great information on there in there about, you know, just how do you know? What does it look like? Some of that extreme gaslighting that she was talking about today, and in one of our earlier episodes, I believe is episode 1, so that you can kind of ascertain, like, what am I in the midst of? But
Mhm.
more than anything is realizing that there is a way out, there is hope, and this particular series is here. And I don't know if there's a series like this on the internet because this is not about us, coming in here to, um, we're being very careful. Let's say this way, we're not trying to be fantastic with this. There's a lot to be said about this situation that we're going to withhold
Yeah.
because this is not about views. It's not about clicks. It's not about likes. It's about who needs it and letting them know that your after is possible. And one of the
And
things that we do with this, we do use EFT, but there's a lot more than just tapping on your body. There's a lot that has to go on in order to extricate yourself from a situation like this.
And that's what I appreciate about what we're doing is there's so many different modalities that we're introducing to everybody. And it's stuff they may have heard of and it's stuff that they may never have even heard of it before. But in conjunction, when you're using all these different tools together, you can start healing. You know what
Yes,
I mean?
yes. All right, thanks, Morgan. Look, everybody, look forward to episode 4. We are going to be getting into how she escaped, how she escaped, how is she here? Because it was very, very dramatic. It was very dramatic. And we want to share it because it may help you or someone you love. We are grateful that you were here with us. If you want more information about how you can work with us, especially in terms of tapping, or if you are a staff member at a shelter, thank
Mm.
you. Thank you so much. But if you'd like to work with us, you can send us an email at tapping@gettingtoafter.com. And we would love to hear from you and we can see how we can work with you. So we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. See you
All
next
right.
time.
Talk to you soon.